Call this special engineering committee meeting to order at 5 p.m. The first step will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please join me in Pledge Allegiance? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. First item up is approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
All right, I second. Motion's approved. Second item, do we have any public comment?
There's nobody online or in person.
All right. Item number 3, approval of the minutes. I have a motion.
I motion to approve the minutes.
I second. Motion of the approval of the minutes is approved. Number 4, review of the 10-year capital plan for the 2025 and 2026 budget. And who has that item? George has that one. All right, George, you're up.
All right. Our line 1 for our chromium mitigation project, it would be line 1, subline 1, well 14 for the year fiscal year 25-26. You'll note that staff did budget $450,000. In doing cost benefit analysis across all the districts, production sources, we've identified a few thoughts, and we like to share those with the committee. It's $1,190 an acre foot today for replacement water costs in the Antelope Valley. On top of, we estimate it would cost about $450,000 to reduce the production capacity of well 14, equip it with a packer. Then we still have our normal production costs, $250 an acre foot to extract the water. For our Edison, staff would like to potentially move that $450,000 and quite simply abandon well 14. We have till October of 2027 to keep it on as a production source. As of October 1st in 2027, the district will have to formally abandon it. But we can keep it up till then to help us with our 10-year max day demand calculations until future production assets such as well 18, and we're going to touch on that here in a moment, are brought to bear. So we also, if we notice on subline 3 for well 18, have budgeted $2 million for additional water supply. Staff's acquired property, CEQA's begun. We're ahead of our schedule to have that online by October of 2027. And if we note for this fiscal year, we had estimated $150,000 to equip well 12 with a packer, a pneumatic packer, and reduce its production. But we're trying to think outside the box. So what we did is, again, this cost benefit analysis, take that holistic from the ground up approach. Is there anything we could do different? Would it be more advantageous for the district to maybe keep well 12 at its current production capacity and include well 10 into a ion exchange? It's almost a treatmentless ion exchange. They've removed some of the treatment plant out of the treatment plant to where your regeneration equipment has been truck mounted. There's no storage of brine on site. There's no storage of saturated brine, hazardous materials. This is all truck mounted. They come, regenerate. Rough costs, I'm hoping this week we've got actual costs. I apologize, I haven't been in. It's about $20,000 a year to regenerate. For us, it would be approximately $20,000 a year to regenerate once. When we calculate our concentration and bed volumes, we may even be able to push that back to regenerating that resin every other year. There may be some bacteriological requirements that we'd have to look at with that kind of latency. But when we're measuring strictly hexchrome concentration, so we're trying to explore all of our options. What is in the district's best financial interest? Would it be to take that $600,000 and potentially drill well 16 that has CEQA completed on it at the fill station? The geotechnical data there suggesting in and around 400 gallons a minute, or if the district is to keep well 12 and 10 at its current production, that's 1,300 gallons, 1,400 gallons a minute. It would just have some minor treatment costs. So we're going to capture what exactly those numbers look like and incorporate that, but we just wanted to have that conversation as we're kind of really dipping our feet into the chromium pool here. Well 15, as we all know, has been completed, and our reservoir 6A, CEQA's been completed on that. That would be going there at the south end, Sheep Creek up on the hill by our other reservoir. It's proposed at a 1.5 million gallon reservoir. Currently there's a 500,000 gallon reservoir up there, so it would triple the amount of storage we have today. And that is contingent upon some federal funding. The district would contribute approximately $700,000. I know there's a lot to hit you with. Do you guys have any questions?
No. I look forward to seeing the information come back on the treat and blend proposal. Also, with well 14, I'm always leery to destroy wells, even though it's expensive. You never know when something might happen. You might have that redundancy in your system if the water quality is not bad and it doesn't require too much work to use that well or additional infrastructure.
So we wouldn't destroy it. Abandon with 2 blind flanges would be required. Our sanitary engineer is going to require physical separation so we can remove a spool piece.
Yep.
And still utilize the resource, exercise it monthly, quarterly, pump it off to waste. So there's a very
Okay.
minor power cost there. I would not strip it nor destroy it. Especially if these treatment costs come back with the low capital investment that was presented, and extremely low O&M. It may be even advantageous sometime in the future just to have that on paper as a backup, because it is a great producer. It's extremely prohibitive to pump it at that replacement water cost. But no, I would not propose destroying it, merely abandonment.
Okay. Yeah, when I think abandonment, I think you're going to destroy the well, abandon the well. So
Just 2 blind
you-
flanges.
Yeah.
The very minimum possible.
You're going to put it in hibernation.
That's a good word.
Hibernation.
All right, thanks, Sean.
I could move on with item number 2. That's a Civic Center project. For 2020, 24-25, the project should be advertised and probably into the groundbreaking before the end of this fiscal year. We have $8 million set aside for 2024. We're going to be doing a carryover to 25-26. And if I recall, and I believe this table does show it, that we had a breakdown of what those expenses would be over the next 2 to 3 years. The project estimate came in around $12 million. That is being revised. We're working on finalizing those numbers to bring to the board to solicit bids for that project probably in the next month or so. So moving to $12 million and spreading it over the 25, 26, 26, 27, and 27, 28. We got an 18-month project for construction and final permitting. We'll probably dip into the later part of 27. We are also bringing aboard a construction manager for the project. The cost is unknown as of yet. We haven't gone out for a professional services agreement and advertising this, so we're estimating it to be around $500,000 kind of where that number kind of landed on the 25, 26. With that being said, this table is going to be updated with more accurate numbers and actually costs that were spent for, I'm going to go back to 6A, costs spent for CEQA, soils, and survey, as well as land acquisition, just so you have an idea of what was spent for this fiscal year. Same with the Civic Center project. Any questions on the Civic Center project?
Yeah, I do. On the Civic Center project, you said the estimates are coming back at 12 million. We budgeted 8. So on the capital plan, capital improvement plan projects here, I know we have a big lift this year that's coming out of the budget. If we have to make up that difference, how will that impact the capital improvement projects as a whole? Are you going to have to take monies from other parts of the capital improvement for that out of the general fund and move it, capital improvement general funds, and then move it over? How's that going to work?
So the 8 million, I believe, is coming from the original cost with excluding the grant funding on the FEMA side of it, on top of county's funding as well for the project, for the EOC, which brought us to around 10.5. Those are the numbers we need to verify and update on this table.
George, we also have the park contribution. We don't have the enterprise fund
That's correct.
here. There's,
Okay.
I believe,
All
$4
right.
million from the enterprise fund parks
Okay.
side of the project.
Yeah.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good question, though.
Yeah, that's part of the discussion to kind of update this table. This
Okay.
is just the beginning stages of discussion on this CIP. If I could move on to item number 3, that's the master plan, the water master plan for reservoirs. Item number 4 is the pipelines, and then future growth in the item number 5. But in item number 3, we kind of pushed everything out a few years for 27, 28. There's nothing there that we're looking at expenses. Reservoir 7A, that was identified as an additional storage required. Reservoir L1, storage capacity. Item number 4, and if the general manager is inclined to kind of push those 4 items out another year. And for the last 4 years, we haven't found really a need to jump on these projects. They were identified in the Water Master Plan as not a priority, but just a recommendation. And the way we see it is, if there are any improvements needed for a project, for example, industrial or residential, usually that cost is on the customer
developer, yep.
or developer. So that's kind of where we kind of sit with this. So really it's not a priority, but just a recommendation, just push it out a bit. If not 1 year, maybe 2 years.
So you think Sundown is going to move to 2026, 27, and then move everybody else over consecutively a year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see you bring that up, I see the sundown. A lot of these are 6-inch to 8-inch, or 8-inch, 6 and 8 up to 12-inch upgrades. So that tells me that there's a restriction. And you probably need to do those pipeline improvements for fire flow improvements, right?
That's exactly it.
All right. And then on the master plan, was that something that was done by a consultant, or did we do that in-house?
The original master plan was back in 2010 when the district was formed. 10 years later, we've had that updated,
Okay.
and that was finalized in 2021 by a consultant, both by consultants and
By
2 different consultants.
Did they do a criticality assessment on the storage and the pipelines to make sure that we're replacing them instead of just in time where they're being replaced prior to failure?
There are 2 criterias. One is recommendations, and one is priority, and the other is, well, I call that third recommendation, is for future growth. And that's kind of what you see into the pipelines when we get down to item number 5. They did address those independently, prioritize them, recommendation, and priority. So they have been looked at, and we kind of made a determination that we're not in that dire need of prioritizing any projects. Storage was one, 6A. We just happened to find some grant funding for that project. That was identified in the master plan. Two other projects that were also identified for Zone 6 were two pipelines. One, Piñon Hills Road, which we installed probably about 2 years now.
Yep.
And another location which we found with the model being revised and tweaked a bit with field calibration, it wasn't as necessary. But the
Okay.
Piñon Hills Road was critical. I mean, we found low pressure at the end of the west side of Maria Road by Smith and Springs. That was also identified in the water master plan. So yeah, we kind of dive into it a little bit. I mean, probably in the next 4 or 5 years, we'll be updating that master plan with new pipelines that were put in with mainline extensions, wells 15, wells 18 potentially in the future. So that'll just be part of the calibration of our model.
Thank you.
And like I said, item 5, we pushed it out to the next master plan. So, and that's for like future growth. Really, it's like build out. That's what that is.
One more quick question.
Sure.
Usually, anticipation for future growth, either we'll do pipeline projects, and then there'll be a certain fee associated with buying into the system with those upgrades done pending developer improvement or developer-driven improvement with reimbursement agreements for anybody that ties on that has a direct impact for the upgraded that the developer paid for. Is that how it works?
Yeah, there is one project at the southeast corner of our district where the developer put in the infrastructure, and there is that credit that's applied to their connection fees. You know, we haven't really entertained any of those type of projects. Could there be in the future? I believe so. We would have probably that same type of agreement where there's a reimbursement for any future meters on that kind of project.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Smith and Springs, I'll leave it with Sean.
Before we get too far away, for a moment, we could circle back to item number 1, that $150,000 that is budgeted for this year. It would not be in the district's interest to utilize that yet. I would request that we do move that to the fiscal year 25-26, seeing it the MCL is official, and we do have till October of 2027. So there, by no means is that we're in a rush. We have a lot of time to do that cost-benefit analysis, bring those numbers back when we have hard costs, both capital and O&M. If I believe that would be the most prudent thing to do with those funds. Item number 6.
Yeah, actually, I might just want to touch on that. I saw Smith and Springs and I thought Sean. A while ago, we spoke of a project to capture that outflows from that spring with a tank. And this was something that was always kicked out for future considerations. I would say again the same this year. This is probably something we can kick out for the next year.
What's the purpose of having that tank up there?
So I'd like to help George on this one as well. I've spoken with two sanitary engineers. It was the thought being perhaps the district could capture that surface water, treat it, and introduce it into the distribution system because there would be no relevant pumping costs as it sits higher than the distribution system. That would have to be permitted as surface water. It would not make the cost benefit for anywhere from 4 to 10 gallons a minute to permit surface water is not there. I've brought in 2 different sanitary engineers. At even 100 gallons a minute, it would not be there. But sometimes we're seeing 2-3 gallons a minute. It's just the cost benefit's not there.
No.
Part of that too, if I recall, capturing that water would then also provide justification to Mojave Water Agency for the water that's being reintroduced to the basin. So we're not being accredited with the amount of water that we should, because that water is just being dumped into Oeste Basin. That hasn't really materialized to anything, I believe, yeah.
No,
But
are
that
you
was the
suggesting we remove that item completely for here and into the future? And maybe put it towards a helipad for fire suppression?
Mojave's new modeling has significantly increased the amount of recharge from septic. It more than captures that small quantity of water coming out of Smithland Springs. We do have the desedimentation basin up there. We can calculate flow. We have never invested in like a surface water flow monitor. Again, it's just cost prohibitive. It would be my recommendation that we never introduce surface water into the distribution system unless it's a significant volume to where the cost benefit becomes beneficial. But for anywhere from 3 to 10 gallons a minute, it just does not exist from an operational standpoint.
No.
And perhaps we could maybe retitle that to a helitank.
Yeah, one of the things
There
we've
could
been
be some
looking at
benefit.
is over the past year or two was a tank that they could fill helicopters and with the fires that we've just had, the county, we did talk to the county recently, to Paul Cook's office about funding for that. We've also have somebody looking for grants. And I think if we left that $25,000 in there and had it more of a, for fire suppression, that might be a more appropriate use that could be used. Not saying that it would be. We might get grants for the whole thing, or it may not even happen.
Yeah, because
But if we do,
typically
we would have some money
they'll
for.
dip out of the aqueduct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you could either eliminate it or retitle that.
Yeah, I don't see it to be a benefit that surface water, or if it was a spring, groundwater, the influence of surface water, then depending on the water quality, even if you could, it might have high organic content, so then you'd have to chloraminate it, which doesn't mix with our system.
We have ventured down that road twice.
Yeah, I don't see it to be a need. I think it's wishful thinking, but it's not prudent financially.
Would it be the desire of the committee to perhaps retitle line 6 to like fire suppression helicopter tank? And just so it can be relevant discussion and remind us, we are actively searching for grants.
Yeah.
Any funding we can find.
Yeah, and also too, it might be more than for that, if there's any need for fishing, game, or wildlife, that they might want to utilize that spring water and build some guzzlers, they have that opportunity, or a water source. I don't know, there's a million different ways you could use that water.
Okay.
So rename it, and then do you want to bump it to 26, 27, or just leave it where it's at?
I'd leave it 25, 26.
Okay.
If I can move on to item 7. Future expansion sites. I believe well 18 would be classified under this line item, and that was the purchase of the land for the well 18 just north of Highway 18 on Beakley Road. We'll put in the cost of that in the 24-25, just as a reminder of what that was, and shift over the 100,000 into 25-26.
Now, George, did we utilize that money or a portion of that money for the purchase, the $21,000 for the purchase of the property and the cost of the CEQA? So that money, there's not much left to move over. I would,
So, because that item was for land, we could do that,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much spent that.
So
money.
we would exhaust that. We're going through the NEPA process for well 18 as well, so we'll pull from that.
Yeah,
funds.
that would all come out of that 100,000.
Okay.
Line number 8, wells, for future well 16. So we do identify, we know our infrastructure is aging. The average age of our wells is kind of at or beyond their expected life expectancy. You know, most of these are mild steel, many of them even mild steel wire wrap. They're 40, 50, 60 years old. Unfortunately, nothing lasts forever. So looking kind of out in the year 2930, we at least have a plan to capture that in the future. But again, kind of tying that in with the conversation from item 1, we're really kind of looking at every option that's out there. Is it in the district's best interest to perhaps walk away from well 14 and well 12 and go drill another one in a better production area that's free of chromium? But I would like to emphasize, drilling is a risk.
Well, yeah, you never know what you're going to
I've seen on
get.
the same half-acre parcel, one well that yielded 6,500 gallons a minute of almost chromium-free water, and one that did 500 with chromium through the roof. So inherently, drilling, everything has its risk, and drilling is up there. That's again why staff is exploring what is the best cost-benefit solution, or do we keep our known production wells and outfit them with 2 resin-filled tanks and we treat those? So we're hoping to have those numbers. We've been in talks with the companies to really hone in on, you know, what does our O&M look like? We supplied all of our water quality data to really have a firm number on it would cost X dollars to build it and then X dollars to maintain and regenerate it. And we're hoping to have those very shortly. Line 9 is, I don't know how we feel about the meter replacement program's been done for several years now. This one is also kind of a carryover from the past. Although in our original meter replacement plan that was presented and approved by the board, in its, I believe it's 14th or 16th year, instead of a capital where we come in and kind of wholesale out all the meters, it was the 14th year from the year of inception of installing the new meters where it becomes an O&M, a certain quantity. It was 7% of the district's meters will be replaced annually on a round-robin basis. So you don't get a lump sum of these meters that have expired. So basically every meter's kind of outdated at once. It's really just an annual O&M cost at that point. Plus it's not quite such a heavy lift for staff.
Sure. Sean, I got a quick question. With the meter replacement program, even though we have fairly new meters, do you go in and pull meters from different zones and test them to see how they're holding up to their use and standard that they were designed to work?
Excellent question. On our prior population, yes. On our new meter population, because it's not even quite 5 years old yet, we have not started that.
Okay.
At year 5, we have proposed beginning that. We have the test benches just to verify accuracy, so we have that written trail behind us that, yes, we are sampling about 1% of that population.
Okay.
But it kind of tying it into, at that 14th year, so I believe that's 9 years from today, it was 7% of the district's meter population we will budget to go ahead and systematically replace. So the first 7% that went in will be the first 7 out.
Yep.
And that's just kind of for perpetuity. So we don't ever get into having the whole district meter population aged out at once.
Yeah. No, that testing is good. It puts your finger on the pulse at how the meters are doing, and then you'll know for capital if you might need different funding as it goes along.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Line 10, our booster and apparatus replacement electric panels, kind of tying in with, yes, we know our infrastructure is aging, especially the electric panels, where at some of our sites, you know, things have changed since 1979 when it was put in, and we've upsized a few things, and we're pushing it, and we're pushing it pretty hard. We know that because this last summer we kind of exploded 2 panels, and some of these panels are sold, we can't even get parts. So what we really try to do is at least capture, doing our due diligence, having some funds in place to change out, kind of bring in a whole new electric panel and switch gear. However, this year also yielded some really interesting and not good statistics. They are extremely, extremely expensive and hard to get. There's been 2 items before the board in the last 6 months that we have brought. We've had to break these projects in half. Our original estimates were at $135,000 wholesale change out to electric panels at these sites. Our operations yard, we went to do that. Costs have over doubled, and it was 400, was it 440? 499. Now it's a little bit larger than some of our other sites. So there was a 600 amp panel, really at most of our other sites, 400 amps, plenty sufficient. I'm just gonna be honest, that 135 is light, and I hate to say that. We also did not build in an automatic increaser, and with electrical components and their availability, if they're only getting more expensive and harder to get, I don't know if the committee would like to see a built-in increaser. I know as an operational manager, I would love to see that. I can do about half a panel for what we have budgeted. I do my best and we break it in half, but that's just the reality of these wildfires are not going to make it much easier. There's really an emphasis on electrical and electrical safety anymore.
Are we fully depending on the panel manufacturer for speccing out, or are we using an electrical engineer to design our panels and then going to any type of shop that's capable of building those panels?
So kind of a hybrid. We are dependent on the manufacturer specifications. We do not have an electrical engineer. We contact our electrical supplier. They assist us in how many amps, but no, I do not have the
Yeah, that'd be a recommendation. I would recommend to reach out to electrical engineering contractor who uses panels. I mean, it's not Berth anymore. I can't remember the name of them.
Sulzer.
Yeah, Sulzer does them. There's several different outfits here in Southern California or out of state that custom build panels to your spec. And sometimes that saves you money because it's not a cookie cutter build.
One service we do get for free, because how we constructed well 15, staffed it all of the underground. We only brought in, Chris, if you could help jog my memory, sorry, it's a little hazy today. Tess Electric. They do a lot of consulting with us for free. They help us design the requirements that we need in our panels, and then we can bid those out to multiple supply houses around to try and get the most cost beneficial pieces we can get. We certainly can look at electrical engineering services. That $135,000 does not go very far.
What is the actual cost? If you were to budget a number to replace one at 25, what would that number look like?
450.
And then it's probably the number you got to plug in, and we probably need to find the money somewhere.
Starting at 25, 26, and
Yeah.
then doing what you suggested and adding
And
every
an
year.
increaser.
You should probably have like a 5 or 8% increase.
Yeah.
Straight down the line with those.
Is that the desire? Those are the real costs.
It's
and
the
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
That is-
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. That's the cost of doing business. And so you're going to have to pencil that in or factor it in. And this way, we know what our true costs are going to be
Right.
budgetary purposes.
So maybe that 250 on line 4.1 Sundown Road, if that's not a priority right now, we can still push those down, but that might help you find the money. As our rate study captured the dollar amounts that we have in the capital improvement project for a 5-year window. So I think we would have the leeway, if that's not a critical thing that needs to be done, upsizing that line right now, instead of pushing that off 1 year, that might be finding the money for this year to get that panel done.
Yeah.
And then we can start working on the next ones.
Where it becomes critical is when the parts are no longer available for the
Exactly.
manufacturer.
Yeah,
And
and
then
if we're
That's
so far
actually
out to
happened.
get the
We've
parts.
resorted to eBay
Yeah.
for 2 of our panels. We actually had to have somebody drive up, was it San Jose, 2 years ago, to retrieve the manual transfer switch. They're simply just not made.
Yeah.
Many times, actually, when we're done with them, they're not rebuildable.
No.
We tend to melt them.
Yeah, and the existing panels don't allow for retrofit easily.
That's
Do you continue to shop looking a year or two ahead
We do.
on eBay or wherever you're finding these at to see if you can,
We bought 3. We actually have 1 spare list sitting on the shelf. And we had hoped that we were getting into whole panel changeouts, even getting our hands on them, as we remember a few months ago. Lead time on these is 12 to 18 months, sometimes more.
Yeah.
So we have 2 on order, kind of looking into the future. And I know the accountants hate me for this, because we can't pay for it till we actually get it, and then I don't want them to hit in the same fiscal year. So we're really trying to balance that as best we can. But I also have to have these panels approved by Edison before I can order them to make sure they fulfill the USERT codes. So it's kind of the fox guard in the hen house.
So it's encumber and carry over.
well, maybe for
Yes.
the 25-26 budget, we take care of that one by shifting that one project down on the master plan pipeline to Sundown Road. And then staff will come back with the plan and back to the engineering committee on what we're looking at for the next few years. You know,
Yeah.
if we know we're gonna have 10 over the next 10 years, then we need to plan now.
Yeah.
That would be quite helpful. I think that would be the best path.
Well, and you look at your capital improvement funds and then you look at criticality. So if you're not experiencing a bunch of leaks or bad pipe, you can transfer some of that over into panel refurbishment or replacement, because that's the most critical need. And then if the pipeline does decide it wants to let loose after we've already purchased panels, we'll revisit that.
We get into that statement in a couple lines. so-
Okay. So,
Don't jump ahead.
I'm sorry, that's just my operational
No,
experience
thank you.
kicking
I
in.
very much appreciate the feedback.
Yeah.
This line, Chris knows, I've been pulling what's left of my hair out, just trying to make it work any which
Yeah.
way we can.
You're not alone. We've got some projects at work where we're 18 months out for MCC panels on lift station upgrades and water pump station upgrades.
For a reservoir on line 11 for storage tanks, well site 2 is becoming an ever increasing more important part of the district's operational. It acts as a centralized hub, kind of as the Oasis Yard does right now, but especially with well 15 coming online. Well 18, we actually were able to kind of think around this bottleneck that we're experiencing at Site 2. We're going to be tying well 18 directly into the distribution system. But as the district grows, that's really where the good quantity and good quality of water is. Staff had budgeted to perhaps increase the storage capacity there and or the storage redundancy in the year 26, 27, just to have that as operational. It is an operational necessity. The tanks there that are quite small, this would just give us a little bit more redundancy in case there's a power outage like we had on Saturday. And it was also identified in our water master plan.
So you're talking line 11. What are you suggesting with that? Leaving it in the
Yes.
26, 27?
Very much so.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you weren't shifting it back here. Okay, I'm good with that.
Planning, or item 12, the urban water management plan for 2025. The guidelines for the plan is due out in March this year. So the anticipation was to budget the 25,000 to start, or to begin the work on that urban water management plan with the consultant. A few months back at the executive TAC meeting with Mojave, it was proposed by the general manager to do a regional urban water management plan. We already work with Mojave with our plan. We coordinate with population projections and supply that the consultant that's preparing the regional urban water management plan for Mojave Water Agency would also prepare at certain levels the 10 that are required to prepare urban water management plan to work with their consultant. I think it's Zangero, is the consultant. Just last year, or three weeks ago. It was late December. They sent out a questionnaire and a cost of what that's going to look like. So their cost came in at $15,000 to prepare it. The only heavy lift the district would have would just provide the data, and then they would help assist us in public notice and adoption of the urban water management plan. So they're collecting the questionnaires. Seems like 10 out of 10 would participate, and then we would be looking at a $15,000 budget for the urban water management plan. So as we speak, I would say that we're going to strike out the $25,000 for the 24-25, leaving the $15,000 for the 25-26, when most likely we would be entering into a professional service agreement with Mojave Water Agency and their consultants. So we'll kind of leave that $15,000 in for 2025-26. The water master plan, I just spoke on that. That's not due until 28-29. Same way, they'll kind of introduce well, all the data, the infrastructure improvements, the calibration of our system would then help to update the water master plan. So we got a few more years to collect that data and to update that water master plan, but we're looking into a few years from now. Any questions on that? Would probably conclude the CIP into the next page, the enterprise capital purchases. So, Sean?
Line 14, vehicles. If we notice, equipment line. So the district meets all of its on-road and off-road fleet requirements. Just this week, there was a statement made by our new administration that they may be walking back some of those mandates. I don't know how it's going to apply in our state. As our rules stand right now, in the year 2032, the district will not be able to purchase another internally combusted engine. All of our equipment's Tier 4 final, or it's on a low hours use exemption. So anything that's not DEF diesel, we can only run up to 100 hours. So in our software from engineering, when the staff does their safety checks in the morning, it automatically runs through. If we start getting close, right about halfway, we'll get a warning, 3/4, so we don't exceed those hours. That's why our equipment line, we just got our mini excavator. Our backhoe's pretty new. There's just not that need. But our trucks, we really got through the thick of it there a few years back. We did kind of run into, again, our whole fleet was purchased at once, so our trucks kind of all aged out at once. Thank goodness we got through that, and now we're just kind of in a maintenance mode. We put a 12-year on the vehicles. At the 12th year, we really noticed our maintenance costs skyrocket. So on the 12th year, or if one was worked a little bit harder, we'll cycle those out, but that ties in with the district's vehicle replacement plan. And operationally, we're good where we are, unless it's the desire of the committee to move that forward or backwards. But really, it's that 12th year that just stood out. Those maintenance costs just skyrocketed. So we propose at the 12th year, we cycle that vehicle out, and that's what the plan ties in today.
Yeah. Plus, because of our nature of our community, dirt roads and everything, those vehicles are considered under severe duty all the time. The dirt roads, the dirt, the dust, the application. On the replacements, you probably find that you'll have some vehicles that will exceed the expectations of the criteria. I would assume we keep those longer and then replace them when needed.
And so this coming fiscal year, that's exactly, thank you for highlighting that. There's not the need for a vehicle. Mm-hmm. However, there is the need for a piece of equipment. So then rather get so complex laid out here, our vehicle purchasing plan has left it to the general manager, the operations manager. If we identify, we're able to negotiate on the district's behalf and obtain really what the operations department needs. And it just kind of leaves it, luckily, very simple like this. If you'd like, we can include the vehicle is the vehicle and equipment replacement plan of the prior and future. Like this coming year, we're actually planning on a valve turning machine rather than a vehicle because we don't have that need. Everything we have is under the 12th year. We just didn't lay it out here, but if it's the desire of the committee, we'd happily bring that back, and you can see kind of how we plot it out for the next 12 years.
Yeah, I'd like to see that in a future meeting. It's good to go through, so we know what the plan is and make recommendations or support for that plan. Yeah, and that's good that you're gonna get a valve turning machine. I'm sure you're looking at WOX units with the GPS enabled feature.
Just having one that starts would be nice.
Yes, yes.
And then you want
And there's benefits to that too, for safety for your employees.
And
It's
tying in with-
ergonomically correct, and the amount of effort used to turn valves is next to nothing.
And our current unit does tie in with tied in with our GIS to automatically incorporate that data in with our GIS platform to we better manage the data.
Yeah. With the WOX unit, if you get a GP or a survey duty GPS, it'll get you down to the inch on your valve can for mapping. So, cool. Thank you.
Item 15, that's the software and hardware. And this serves more of a long-term replacement on servers. Now that we're looking into a potentially a new building, new infrastructure paid predominantly off grants, the item here, like I said, it's really a placeholder. So we have it for 27, 28. Not sure we're going to need much replacement once we're into that building. So that kind of takes us into potentially into that building in a couple of years in 27, 28. So no need to kind of move that around. That's all I got for the enterprise capital purchases. So what we'll do is we'll update this table, and I believe it's February 11th is when we'll have our first board workshop, and we'll do an overview of what was discussed today.
Perfect.
All right. The next area is number 5, review of committee roles and responsibilities. Who has that?
That's a review. You have the
Right here
list
on
of the duties. If
page
you
number
would like to
9.
make any changes, this would be the time to note that.
Rebecca, do you have anything?
No, I don't see any changes needed.
Nope, I do not.
Okay.
The next item is OSD Recharge Study Project.
I can take this? Sure. Thank you, Sean. The last update I got from Mojave Water Agency was that the basis of design report should have been completed and taken to DWR for approval of the project. I probably would just give an overview of the projects, the recharge basins. Back in December of 2023, Mojave Water Agency awarded a contract to Ardura for 3 recharge basins, one in Oeste, the basin, one in Lucerne, and then the other north of Yucca, which is the Ames-Ritchie. Study is to, with the engineer, is to prepare like percolation, understanding, what we're looking at for recharge with a temporary turnout. And in the future, probably 3-4 years, a permanent turnout. And I'm speaking specifically for the recharge basin of Oeste. During that time, one of the projects was deemed unviable based on the results from the percolation. And that's the Lucerne Valley. So there's 2 projects on the table for recharge. The one Ames over in Yucca Valley is kind of fed off the Morongo pipeline. That's from the State Water Project. So they have, I believe, CEQA has been completed, and we're moving forward with approval with DWR. They're also mitigating the Joshua trees at the Wested Basin. They submitted their incidental take permit for the Joshua trees. They're just waiting for the mitigation to run its course with their NEPA compliance on that. And then funding for the project would come in 2 different sources. One source would be through the federal funds that were earmarked for a project like this, and then recently applied for funding through the Bureau of Rec for grant funding as well, under the Smart Water grant process. That Bureau of Rec, they believe they would have anticipation of awarding that project in mid-2025, so maybe June, July. Then they can move forward with the project. So right now they're just looking for grant funding for the Oeste Basin. The Oeste permanent turnout, just a turnout itself, a tie-in from the aqueduct to the recharge basin is about $6 million. So that's the 3-year down the line project. I have no more to update on that. That was the most recent information I gotten from staff over at Mojave.
Thank you. You have any questions, Rebecca?
thank you.
No, I don't either. Thank you. Next item for discussion is discussion regarding water system, pumps and wells, 10-year tank rehabilitation maintenance, water quality, service line replacement program, and other repairs and replacement updates and maintenance.
We have the manager's report in our packet. Some of the highlights, well 14 production, we're seeing 0.0 acre foot for the year, and that's just done for some bacteriological samples. Staff's just starting our dead end flushings for the year, with 317 of them, so we're just starting. We're into our tank washout season. Contract scope's 10 a year. We've washed out. We're about halfway there for this year. We've done 5, 2-1, 2-2, 3A, tank at well 10 and now 1. One of the big highlights, and I really want to give a shout out to the guys in their hard work. They replaced 254 services this last year. That's 3.5% of the district. That is by far a new record, and that really ties in with our total non-revenue water, or our water loss, 11% for the calendar year in 24. We were 16% in the calendar year 23, and that is a significant portion of that, as well as rebuilding clay valves, water conservation, everything as a whole. And I really think staff across the board deserves a huge kudos for that. They definitely get it from me. I'm so appreciative that is one we're able to do. We notice it in the amount of leaks that come in every day, and we've really seen that decline. That program is working, and it's working wonders. We do have one person that's completed the meter assistance program, one whole person, and we have one pending right now. So we hopefully will be up to 2.
Yeah, the pending one right now, just to give you an update, I reviewed that. We're getting requests that are a little bit outside of what we had talked to the board about how this process would work. So we'd like to bring that back to the board for consideration. I still think it's a good program the way that it's being requested, but we'd like to bring it back to the board so we make sure we stay within the parameters of what the board has authorized us to do with this project. We're getting some new construction projects that are asking for the same same process.
Our well and booster contract, a couple of our boosters just went back in, good complete overhauls. You know, we get rid of those old stuffing boxes, transferred over to mechanical seals, get those efficiencies up. So booster A, Site 1B, booster A, Site 2A. Well 15 accounted for 39% of the water the district produced for the month of December. We're really just trying to run it. That has been just instrumental in operations. We're beginning our production source meter and intertie accuracy certificates for the year, and changed out some isolation valves. You'll notice piles of vegetation at the sites. You know, we burn those off. Unfortunately, we are at CAL FIRE's discretion when they let us do that. Right now is probably not the most opportune time to even call and ask, but we do. If they green light it, I think I would decline to burn at the moment, just till things settle down, and it's going to take like a 0 wind day, but that is the most cost-effective way we can get rid of that. That's why we have those giant piles sitting on our property back here. It's a lot more cost-effective than hauling it. And then the fill station stats for last month on the back. Happy to answer any questions.
I don't have any additional questions. Do you, Rebecca?
Nope, thank you.
All right. The next item is Smith and Springs update.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to update up there. I maybe kind of looking at our CIP update, it perhaps would be a good time to strike that as well.
As an agenda.
Annually, we do go through there and mitigate the vegetation. Years ago, it looked like a tropical rainforest, so we have a CAL FIRE crew or two go up there for a day or two. They do the heavy hauling of cutting the brush down. We don't burn it off up there. It is not worth the risk.
Is the recent fires going to have any impact on that area that'll need any additional work?
No, it got very close, but not quite.
Okay.
Kind of.
And we haven't had any rain to see what's washing down yet either.
Yes.
All right.
Perhaps I'm gonna look to the general manager. Would it be okay to strike number 8 from this?
Yeah, I think so. We were talking about cutting the agenda back because a lot of it is just redundant.
Yeah.
So
I
we'll
agree.
look at that and we'll come back with some
Right.
proposed changes, but that is a good one to take off of there.
Okay. All right. Next item is state regulations update.
Jen, is there any updates?
I don't have any updates, but I don't know if there's any water quality updates that need to be mentioned.
Okay.
No, not at the moment.
Oh, I'm sure the unregulated contaminants monitoring will find something for us to comply with.
1 or 2.
Yes.
I got my guesses.
UCMR. What we're at 6
7?
or 5?
5.
Yeah. All right. Number 10, review of current projects.
I think we did a pretty good job
Okay.
covering number 18, number 16, and the tank, unless there's anything else we can, George.
No. And number 11, staff reports.
Just what's in the packet, unless it can be of service to the committee.
All right. Number 12 would be review of action items, prior meeting or current meeting.
The prior meetings was completed. The current meeting, did you want the meter assistance program to come back sooner rather than later, or just at a future
We'll
meeting?
probably just take that right to the board. It's just a modification of an existing program that we have.
All right.
And then there was the Greg's request for the vehicle.
Yep, vehicles. That's vehicle and equipment, right?
Vehicle
Yeah.
and equipment replacement
Perfect.
plan.
All right.
And then to remove number 8 from the agenda.
And remove
Oh,
number 8, yeah. All right. Item number 13, set agenda for the next meeting, which is February 19th, 2025. And with that, if there's nothing else, we will adjourn the meeting at 6 p.m. Thank you.